All right, let's talk about corporate do-gooding. When companies spend millions of dollars telling us just how green and responsible they are. But in a world full of skepticism, how do we actually know they're not just, well, blowing smoke? How do they prove it's the real deal? That's exactly what we're going to unpack.
And that right there, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? A company puts out this beautiful, glossy report, and it's full of their amazing green achievements. But how do we, you and me, actually know if we can trust it? It's a massive challenge, especially with this constant threat of greenwashing, where all those claims are really more about marketing than actual, meaningful action.
Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at these report cards companies give themselves. Then we'll get into the big why. Why would they pay to get fact-checked? We'll see who does it, who they hire to do the checking, and finally, we'll uncover this really fascinating global split and how companies try to earn our trust.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1. For the longest time, the only story a company really had to tell was about its finances. The profits, the losses. But things have changed. Now, everyone, investors, customers, even their own employees, they're demanding to hear a different story, one that goes way beyond just the bottom line.
And that story is often told through something called a sustainability report. Now, here's the key thing you need to know. Unlike a financial report, which is totally required by law and super regulated, this thing, it's completely voluntary. Companies actually choose to do this, to tell the world about their impact on, well, the world.
So what exactly are they talking about in these reports? Well, it's pretty much the whole shebang. You've got their environmental impact, think carbon emissions. You've got their labor practices, how they handle human rights all the way down their supply chain, product responsibility, what they give back to society, even their economic performance. Seriously, the scope is huge. It covers basically every single way a business touches the world around it.
Okay, so that brings us to this really interesting puzzle. Think about it. These reports are totally voluntary. A company is already sinking a ton of time and money into making one. So why on earth would they turn around and pay even more money to have some third party come in and check their work? It seems kind of weird, right?
Well, this quote from the research really gets to the heart of it. It says the whole point of these reports, their effectiveness, it all hinges on the perceived and actual credibility of the information. I mean, think about it. Without that credibility, what is this report? It's just a glossy marketing brochure, right? It's a difference between a company just patting itself on the back and actually proving it deserves a round of applause.
And you can really see the difference here. On one side, you've got a report with no verification. It's just self-promoted claims, right? And you can't help but wonder if it's biased. But on the other side, you have something called assurance. And that's just the fancy term for getting an independent third party to verify everything. It's like getting an official stamp of approval that helps build real, actual trust.
Okay, so we get it. Assurance is all about building credibility. But who's actually shelling out the cash for it? Which companies look at this extra cost and say, yep, worth it? Well, some researchers decided to dig in and find out.
So the researchers tracked thousands and thousands of companies across 31 different countries. And what they found is pretty wild. Check this out. Out of almost 41,000 companies, only about 2,100 even bothered to publish a sustainability report in the first place. And out of that small group, an even tinier fraction, just 655, decided to get it verified. So let's look at what that breakdown really means.
And here is our first big finding. Of all the companies that published these reports, a huge 69% just didn't get them verified. Only 31%, less than 1 in 3, went for that extra stamp of credibility. So getting your homework checked like this, it's actually the exception, not the rule.
So who's in that 31%? Well, the study found a really clear pattern. It's the companies that have the most to prove. We're talking about industries with a giant social footprint, Think mining, utilities, even finance. For these guys, proving they're being responsible isn't just a nice-to-have, it's absolutely critical for their business.
But wait, the plot thickens. Because once a company decides, okay, we're going to get this thing verified, they face another huge decision. Who do you actually hire to be your referee? Because, as we're about to see, not all fact-checkers are the same.
So basically, the choice comes down to two main camps. First, you have your traditional auditing firms. Yep, the same big names that check all the financial statements. They do about 42% of this work. Then you have other providers, like specialized consultants or engineering firms, and they actually handle the majority, about 58%.
And choosing between them involves some pretty big trade-offs. If you go with a big auditing firm, you're getting a huge global reputation and really strict, well-defined standards.
but it's probably going to cost you more. On the other hand, these other providers might be total experts in a specific area, like, say, carbon accounting, and they often cost less. The catch is their standards and reputation can be all over the map. So what's a company to do?
Now, you'd probably think the choice depends on, I don't know, the company's industry or how badly they need that credibility boost, but the research found something way more surprising. It turns out the very same factors that explained if a company got assurance, they didn't really explain who they picked to do it. The real reason is something else entirely.
And here it is. The key factor wasn't about the company. It wasn't about the industry. It was about the country. That's right. The choice of who you hire to check your report seems to depend a whole lot on the national business culture where your company's based.
The study basically splits business cultures into two big buckets. On one side, you have shareholder-oriented cultures. Think of places like the US and the UK. Here, the #1 job of a company is to create value for its shareholders. Simple. But then you have stakeholder-oriented cultures, more common in, say, Japan and continental Europe. And in these places, companies are expected to have a much broader focus, looking out for employees, society, the whole community.
And this, right here, is the absolute core finding of the paper. It turns out that companies in those stakeholder-oriented countries, the ones focused on society as a whole, are significantly more likely to choose one of the big, traditional auditing firms to check their reports.
So what's going on here? Why this big divide? Well, the researchers think it's all about sending a signal. See, in a culture where you're accountable to everyone, not just investors, hiring a massive, globally known auditing firm sends a really powerful message. It's like saying, hey, look how seriously we're taking this. We're hiring the most reputable, buttoned-up referees out there. The choice itself reflects these deep cultural ideas about who a company really answers to.
So at the end of the day, what this all tells us is that building credibility is a really sophisticated game. It's not just about what you say in your report. It's not even just about deciding to get it checked. It's about who you ask to check it and what that choice signals to the people you're trying to convince.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty huge question for the future. Right now, most of this is voluntary. But we're moving toward a world where this kind of reporting is going to be mandatory. And when that happens, the stakes get way, way higher. The entire system is going to rely on us trusting the verifiers, which really makes you wonder, who's going to be checking the checkers?